Hey, what's up, everyone? Saul here, and welcome to another Office Hours. Today, I'll just be talking about some stuff that's been on my mind real quick, which is how education seems to be failing at the sort of verbal literacy, but also quantitative abilities level. And kind of, it's just I'm right now these days. I've been messing around quite a lot with the generative AI tools that are available. A lot more than before, just because this time around I just had a bit of time to kind of mess with it. And I've been thinking a lot about like the SAT and I guess the ACT as well, plus plus general trends in education, plus the way that I would redesign education so that it kind of made some sense. So I'm going to spitball just my own thoughts on this. And if you guys have thoughts on this, I will prioritize responding to you guys first. And then if you have thoughts, if you have questions about other stuff, I'll kind of swing back around to those topics at the end of this little discussion. Nurball, welcome to the stream. And today, let me just kind of get you. Let's all get on track on where this idea sort of started from. I mean, honestly, there's so many start points, but I was just sort of reading this post on Substack, this little article, essay, post on Substack by a philosophy professor. And this echoes like a lot of what people like if you snoop around like the professors or like the English teachers or just like the high school teachers subreddits, this really echoes a lot of what's being said over there. So none of this to me is new, but if I sort of quickly summarize this article, um, the professor, the context is his students are pretty average. They're not special, and they're not especially smart, uh, and they're not, you know, especially terrible. They're just sort of typical American kids. Okay, and this professor has been there for several years, if not decades, probably decades actually. He actually mentions this earlier, 30 years. Okay, but the claim here is that students are functionally illiterate. American students are functionally illiterate, and by illiterate, this sentence I think is very important. Students are unable to read and comprehend adult novels by people like Barbara Kingsolver, Colson Whitehead, and Richard Powers, who are all recent Pulitzer Prize winners, which is a way of measuring progress on people's reading abilities. So these are average American students who go into college, and they are unable, according to this professor, to read these writers. We're not talking about Finnegan's Wake, because Finnegan's Wake is freaking hard, very hard to understand. But we're also not talking about Harry Potter either. Okay. We're talking about Pulitzer Prize winners, which tends not to be as insanely hard as Finnegan's Wake. So this is the part, and I'm curious if any of you guys like disagree. But here the professor says the students literally could not read a serious adult novel. Now we're talking about like Barbara Kingsolver, Colson Whitehead, Richard Powers novels, cover to cover. They could not understand an entire book on average. Okay? And the idea here, this is more of a professor sort of anecdotal argument, but there are other sort of scientific research on this that I haven't gotten to like the weeds on. But the argument here is students are impatient and they cannot get through the burden of reading. They just roll their eyeballs over the words, and then they consider that reading. Now, by the way, this is something I strongly, this is something I notice all the time as well. Okay, in fact, I sometimes make fun of my students, my one-on-one tutor 2Ds. It's like, oh, okay, what is you just like rolled your eyeballs over it, and you and now you're done. Like, what do you even know about this passage, right? I say this to some of my students, and because I know what that is. I've done it too when I was a kid, right? And this is reading anything more than a menu is a chore and to be avoided. And this is kind of what the level of reading stamina that students have. This little caption is actually kind of hilarious, by the way. And then they lie. Now, I'm not going to get into the lying aspect of it because I don't really care about the lying aspect. You guys may or may not lie about it. Your peers may or may not lie about it. I think the human behavior aspect of it is a much different problem. I'm more curious about just the actual cognitive ability not being developed. So here it says the most charitable interpretation is that instead of lying, they looked at the words, they didn't understand the words, they pretended that looking at the words counted as reading, and then they went back to TikTok. And then this study says, I'm gonna skip that part. I'm gonna skip this part because I remember reading this, but they're writing, new topic here. Writing, the spelling is atrocious, the grammar is random, and the correct use of apostrophe is cause for celebration. Which is, by the way, this is a great sentence, right? It's a well-written sentence. I'm going to skip this part. I don't want to worry so much about this part, but just literally the writing itself is bad. Okay. The reflexive submission of the cheapest cliche as an essay answer. I'm not even going to go with novel insight here, but students are apparently writing just cliches as their essays. Okay, so here is a question. Describe the attitude of Dostoevsky's underground man towards acting in one's own self-interest and how this is connected to his concerns about free will. Are his views self-contradictory? This response is actually hilarious. With the UGM, underground man, UGM, it's all about our journey in life, not the destination. He believes we need to take time to enjoy the little things because life is short and you never gonna know what happens. Okay, so this is awful. This is genuinely awful, but here this is apparently a real student's submission, okay? And this is the answer with acting in one's own self-interest versus free will. It has no connection to self-interest and free will, okay? And then, are his views self-contradictory? This is the answer to the self-contradictory bit. Sometimes he contradicts himself because you say one thing, but then you think something else later. It's all relative, baby, which is just this is awful. This is legitimately awful. Okay, you probably think that's satire, but he says it's either that or it actually just looks like ChatGPT kind of recycling some of these words and just filling in the blank, autofilling the rest from the data pool, which is yeah. I'm not going to get into cheating again, okay? Although in a weird way, I guess my topic question should talk about cheating as well. But this is kind of the argument that's being made, and then the professor here talks more about students' motivation levels and their willingness to just sort of like totally bullshit to completely show up to stop showing up and all this other stuff. More this like attitudinal stuff. I'm actually gonna not worry so much about the details of this year, other than yeah, I think a lot of students are not motivated. I think it's really, I think they're seriously not motivated. But if I kind of come back to the topic now, like why should you study when there's ChatGPT, right? Um, you might notice that I skipped over all the parts that have to do with motivation and cheating, right? The motivation to do the real work and the cheating to kind of make up for not doing the real work. Because I think the fundamental problem is not like, I don't want to sort of pathologize the students. I don't want to say that, these students that are out there, they're like evil or anything like that, or they're like fucked up, they're like messed up, they need to change, right? That's not really what I'm here to do, because I don't think human behaviors aren't that I can't just like you know wave my finger at like 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 kids and expect their behaviors to change. That's insane. Okay, I'm more focused on the fact that they can't read and they can't write, and that actually becomes, that's to me segs into my answer about why you should study, even when the tools available to you, including ChatGPT, including Claude, including Cursor, including Sora, right? When they can do your work for you. Um, the reason you should study is because it feels good to be able to produce something that made you feel good, okay? And that sounds maybe far too abstract, but I'll start by using an example here. Um, every one of you has probably had an experience in a movie. Let's start with a movie for now. A movie that made you just like laugh, and some of you have had an experience where a movie really just moved you like deeply, and maybe even a smaller set of you had an experience where you were laughing and crying at the same time in a movie, and then maybe even a really 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 tiny subset of you, okay, have had a movie that kind of like touched a nerve on in you. Not only did you like laugh and cry, not only did you get deeply moved, but you actually like changed your life. Maybe not in some big dramatic way, but you actually changed your life in some minor way or major way because of that movie. Okay. Um, Games are a little bit more of like a consumer product, so it can be kind of different. But let's go to games. Same thing. I bet there's a lot of you who, if you've ever played a game, you've had moments in games that were extremely memorable, and then if we kind of go down that funnel, there's like a tiny subset of you when a game kind of like change your thinking about what art is or whatever, right? Um, and then we can go into drawings or comic books even, right? Drawings or comic books, same thing. You've had these moments of entertainment and then enjoyment and then sort of like deep engagement and then like a shaking of yourself, right? And then this is the least common of you guys for you guys, but the last example now is books. Books too. Some of you have read books that were entertaining to you, and then enjoyable to you, and then very deeply moving to you, and then something stirring where it kind of changed you, right? And those are all experiences that we can get to have. We are lucky to have those experiences, right? Well, those experiences were created by people. And you know what those people did, right? They learned the language of that medium, okay? And right now, reading and writing is where kind of all the academic, um, all the teachers are worrying about, because reading and writing is academic and teachers are focusing on academics, right? But it's not just reading and writing, it's also the drawing, right? It's also the coding. It's also the animating. It's also the storyboarding. These are all like families of skill that become kind of their own language, right? There's like a visual language that you learned when you are studying cinematography. There's a visual language you learn when you're like, and then there's like there's like the techniques, the family of techniques around like plotting and creating characters and like narrative arts, right? But these are all things that you actually like that people have to learn. And when you try to get ChatGPT to produce those things for you, right? You're not really able to contribute back to the community of people that moved you in the first place. Okay, maybe I'm jumping a couple steps here, but I think right now let me actually back up here one more time. So I'm talking to a subset of people in this world right now. I'm not talking to everyone in this world. I'm talking to a very small subset of people in this world. There's a bunch of you that have been not only moved but been kind of stirred by works in various media. How When you have those feelings, that's a genuine inspiration, and I think the natural reaction to inspiration is to want to create, to actually want to replicate that kind of feeling for other people as well. That's a very normal reaction to have, right? When you have a beautiful scene, you want to know how to make that scene. When you read a beautiful sentence, you want to know how to make that sentence. When you see when something's really eye-catching, like a comic book, and like the way that it's kind of sequenced, okay, you want to be able to make that as well. And then going back into academics, when you learn something very, very interesting, you want to be able to contribute that as well. Well, assuming that you have that desire, the thing is that you'll notice that when you actually start using ChatGPT or Claude to produce those moments of magic, you actually can't, not with them, because ChatGPT can't do the work for you, right? You actually need the skills. You like need the skills of like actually being conversant in that language, and then also the body of work to be able to make references to things, to even know what references to be looking for, to pastiche things, to copy things, to imitate things. Those are all things that like you need as part of your vocabulary and your like skill set. If it's just external to you, you can't actually create those things. So the reason you should be studying is, I think, not because you get a grade for it, right? Because right now the academic world is not ready for AI. So the thing that you're getting graded on is now so easy. Like it's so easy to get graded on those things. Okay? And it hasn't really shifted to a world of AI yet. Instead, the reason you should be studying is you want to kind of replicate these moments of magic that you've experienced, and you want to contribute your own versions of those moments of magic to the rest of the world, right? And that will make you want to be a better writer, a better drawer, a better storyteller, a better alluder to Greek mythology, a better alluder to previous philosophy, like somebody who can talk about those things on the spot without having to use some tool in between, right? Because you actually genuinely know it, right? These are things that enable you to kind of contribute back to the community of creators. I hate that word right now, but I can't think of a better word. To contribute back to the world, you know, and it might not seem very valuable right now, but even in school, all those things that you do that you could bullshit by using like ChatGPT or whatever, I encourage you not to bullshit it, because reading and writing is kind of like a super skill, okay? Reading and writing is kind of like a foundational skill for a lot of the other skills um, that allow you to do those other cool things. And your ability to intake information then to synthesize it in your head, but also to synthesize it by writing it all out and diagramming it and just organize it for yourself. That is like such a superpower that you really should challenge yourself to like read harder and harder stuff and write harder and harder stuff on your own without the help of AI, because it will unlock everything else for you. Okay, and that's my position on. I kind of winged it. I didn't really have a script for it, but that's my position on why you should keep studying, even though these tools can produce the outcomes for you. Let me know if any of that didn't make sense or did make sense, because I suspect a lot of it didn't. I think I might take this stream as like a first draft version for maybe like a blog that I write later on. Rose, good to see you. Rose Grace, good to see you again. And Nurball, I'm going back to your question. Did I encounter such a problem among my students? No, my students are a highly select group of students. They're not typical students. So my students are, generally speaking, if I compare them to like 10 years ago, they're definitely weaker on reading and writing than 10 years ago, but they're not like shockingly weak. So I can't really. The reason that I know that it's a problem is not because my students are awful. My students are fine. The reason that I know it's a problem is, number one, because even my pretty good students are worse than they used to be 10 years ago. Okay, and there's an insane flooding of not just anecdotal evidence on the subreddits, on these blogs, in the Atlantic, in the New Yorker, and all these. It's not just that, okay? It's like there's actual studies. There's people like your generation is like worse at reading and worse at writing and worse at math than previous generations. It's just been extensively studied now. And 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 I really think if you want to recreate those moments of magic, okay, you will never regret having read a little harder and having tried to write a little harder, okay? Because it is a foundational skill that will help you with everything else. I feel like there's a couple of skill sets where it's maybe less relevant, like athletic and artistic, specifically athletic and visual arts and like kind of audio, right? It might be less useful there, but almost everything else, okay, it is directly connected. And even for these, it still helps to be able to read and write. Nurball, you asked the question earlier. You said you have some off-topic issue when you registered on College Board. Yeah, so I feel like for those kinds of issues, you just need to email College Board directly. So make sure to just communicate with them directly, because these are just issues that are you can't really solve at a system level. It's like an individual person's problem, so you got to get an individual solution, which is by talking to them. Okay, go and send them an email and solve that problem. All right, guys, if you're here and you have some thoughts that are not related to the topic, it's okay. We can talk about it now. I'm going to switch over to a members only stream pretty soon. So if you have any questions or have any concerns, I know a lot of you guys, almost all of you should have gotten your college application results by now. So I'm happy to talk about that if you have anything to share. Other than that, if there's no other conversations, then we're going to move on to the members only stream. Okay, right now I'm waiting for you guys to reply in chat. If there's nothing going on in chat, I will move on to the members only stream. It looks like though. Also, what I'm doing is I'm looking through my bookmarks of articles in the last year that all are talking about reading, writing, and SAT. um, so many articles. Oh my god. Yeah. Okay. You got waitlisted from Stanford. Wow. Well, that must feel good. You didn't get rejected from Stanford, Grace. So congratulations. Yeah, I remember you got your early. I forgot what your early was. Your early was also a good school. Um, I see. Yeah. Yeah. Well, accidentally. Sure. 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 I'm pretty sure you just wanted to hear their response. Okay. It's fine. As long as, I mean, you still have to go to your early decision school. So I hope you get that little dopamine boost and then you move on with your life. Because now already have your college that you committed to. So, all right. There are so many articles, honestly, about this topic that I feel like I need to do like a quick roundup. But you know what? There was a Jared Henderson video that just came out like a day ago. Yes, this one right here. And I am curious about this one right here. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna switch over to a members only stream, and I'm gonna just sort of think out loud about this particular video. By the way, this guy is also not a philosophy professor, although maybe he did some teaching. Actually, he probably did do a teaching because I think he was a PhD. Ooh, forgot to share my screen. My bad. So this guy's a philosophy professor, and I think I'm gonna just quickly. I'm gonna watch this video and react to this video in the members only stream, and quick update on who he is. I think he was a PhD candidate that dropped out midway through, so he probably did do some teaching, but he never became like a full professor for philosophy, professor of philosophy. I mean, at a university. So he worked in like tech for a while, and then now he's focusing more on YouTube. Although I don't know if he's 100% on YouTube, but he has relatively a large number of views for somebody that's on a very academic topic. So he's a guy that I listen to every once in a while. So I'll be kind of watching this YouTube video and sort of thinking about what he's talking about in the members only stream. If you want to support my channel, you can support by becoming a member. If you have questions that you couldn't ask me today, you could just find the Discord link down here and just chat with